Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled,
My husband's secret affair with my best friend went on for years. Even now, as I sit here typing these words, it feels surreal, like I'm recounting the plot of some trashy daytime soap opera rather than events from my own life. But here I am, picking up the pieces of my shattered world and trying to make sense of how everything fell apart so badly. My name is Sandra, and for 15 years I thought I was living the perfect life. I had a loving husband, a beautiful home in an idyllic suburb, a successful career that I was passionate about, and an amazing best friend who was like a sister to me. Now I realize it was all built on lies, but hindsight is everything, I guess. Anderson and I met during our sophomore year in college. Our first date was at a tiny coffee shop just off campus. I remember being so nervous I could barely hold my latte steady, but Anderson put me at ease with his easy smile and genuine interest in everything I had to say. We dated all through college, and by the time graduation rolled around, we were talking about forever. Anderson proposed on a moonlit beach the night before commencement. It was like something out of a romance novel. He got down on one knee in the sand, pulled out a ring that must have cost him every penny he had, and promised to love me for the rest of our lives. I said yes without hesitation, certain that I was embarking on my happily ever after. We got married in a small ceremony shortly after graduation. It wasn't anything fancy. We were both broke recent grads after all, but surrounded by our closest friends and family, pledging our love and commitment, it felt magical. I remember looking into Anderson's eyes as we said our vows, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. The early years of our marriage were a whirlwind. We both threw ourselves into our careers, determined to climb the corporate ladder and build the life we dreamed of. Anderson's natural charisma and his mind for business saw him quickly rising through the ranks at a prominent marketing firm. I found my niche in publishing, starting as an editorial assistant and working my way up to senior editor. We saved and saved, living in a tiny apartment and putting every spare penny towards our future. Date nights were often takeout and Netflix rather than fancy restaurants, but we were happy. We were building something together, and that made even the lean times feel special. 5 years into our marriage, we finally had enough saved for a down payment on a house. We found a beautiful colonial in a quiet suburb with great schools and friendly neighbors. The day we moved in, I remember standing in our new living room, surrounded by boxes and feeling like we'd finally made it. This was the beginning of our real adult life. As we settled into our new home, we started to build a social circle in the neighborhood. We joined a local tennis club, attended neighborhood barbecues, and slowly began to form friendships with other couples our age. It was at one of these neighborhood gatherings that we first met Jenny and Brian. They had just moved in a few houses down from us and were clearly still finding their footing in the community. Jenny seemed shy, hanging back as Brian chatted with the other husbands about golf and home improvement projects. I don't know what prompted me to approach her. Maybe I recognized a kindred, introverted spirit. Whatever the reason, I struck up a conversation, and within minutes it was like we'd known each other for years. We discovered we had similar tastes in books, shared a love of obscure foreign films, and even had the same guilty pleasure reality TV show. That night, as Anderson and I walked home hand in hand, he commented on how well I'd hit it off with Jenny. "It's nice to see you making a close girlfriend," he said. "You've always been so focused on work. I worried you might be lonely." I hadn't realized how much I've been missing female friendship. until Jenny came into my life. As the weeks passed, we grew closer and closer. We'd meet for coffee, go shopping together, or just hang out at each other's houses, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Meanwhile, Anderson and Brian were forming their own bromance. They started playing golf together on weekends and meeting up for beers after work. Soon, the four of us were practically inseparable. We celebrated holidays together, took couples trips, and became fixtures in each other's lives. Jenny quickly became my closest confidant. She was the person I called with good news or bad, the shoulder I cried on when work stress got overwhelming, the friend who could make me laugh until my sides hurt. I shared feelings with her that I'd never told anyone else, not even Anderson. She felt like the sister I'd always wished for. For over a decade, life seemed pretty perfect. Anderson and I were both thriving in our careers. We took amazing vacations, bought a vacation home in the mountains, and started talking about maybe starting a family. Our social life revolved around our tight-knit group of friends, with Jenny and Brian at the center. There were dinner parties and game nights, summer barbecues, and winter ski trips. We celebrated each other's promotions and anniversaries, supported each other through losses and setbacks. When Jenny had a miscarriage, I was by her side day and night. When Anderson's father passed away, Brian was there to help with all the practical details, while Jenny and I focused on emotional support. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my world imploded. I remember that detail so clearly. A random, ordinary Tuesday that started like any other day but ended with my entire life in shambles. I had a migraine and decided to leave work early, something I rarely did. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Jenny's car parked on the street. I didn't think much of it at first. She and Anderson both worked from home sometimes, and it wasn't unusual for her to pop by. But as I walked into the house, something felt off. There was a tension in the air, a stillness that seemed unnatural. And then I heard it, muffled voices and a rhythmic creaking coming from upstairs. Even then, my brain tried to rationalize. Maybe they were moving furniture. Maybe they were watching a movie with the volume down low. But deep in my gut, I knew. I climbed the stairs slowly, my heart pounding so loud I was sure they must be able to hear it. The bedroom door was slightly crooked. I pushed it open. And there they were, my husband and my best friend, tangled together in my bed, so lost in each other they didn't even notice me at first. The confrontation that followed is mostly a blur in my memory. There was screaming, crying, bitter accusations flying. Jenny scrambled to cover herself while Anderson tried to approach me, his face full of guilt and fear. Ultimately, none of their excuses could have covered up what they've done, and all of Anderson's pleadings couldn't save them from the truth. Jenny fled, sobbing. Anderson tried again to talk to me, to touch me, but I was beyond reason. The next few weeks passed in a blur of grief, rage, and confusion. I stayed with my sister, ignoring the constant calls and messages from Anderson and Jenny. I needed time to process what had happened and figure out my next steps. Emma, my sister, was a godsend during this time. She took time off work to be with me, held me when I cried, and made sure I ate and slept when all I wanted to do was curl up and disappear. She also ran interference with our parents, fielding their concerned calls and keeping them at bay until I was ready to face them. As news of the affair spread through our social circle, I was overwhelmed by the reactions. Some friends rallied around me, offering support and condemning Anderson and Jenny's actions. Others seemed uncomfortable, unsure how to act around me or what to say. A few even had the audacity to suggest that I try to work things out with Anderson, as if his years-long betrayal was something that could be swept under the rug. The worst were those who admitted they had suspected something was going on between Anderson and Jenny, but hadn't said anything. "We didn't want to get involved," they'd say, or "We weren't sure and we didn't want to cause trouble if we were wrong." Their well-meaning excuses felt like additional betrayals. How many people had known or guessed about the affair while I remained oblivious? I made the mistake of checking Facebook one night after a few too many glasses of wine. My timeline was full of not-so-subtle references to the situation, vague booking at its finest, posts about staying strong and trusting your intuition that were clearly aimed at me without naming names. The final straw was stumbling across a post from Jenny, a tearful selfie accompanied by a long, rambling apology. She talked about making mistakes, about the complexity of love, about hoping for forgiveness. The comments were a mix of support and condemnation. I read every single one, torturing myself with the opinions of strangers about the implosion of my life. In a moment of drunken anger, I posted my own update. "To all those who knew and said nothing, you're as guilty as they are." I regretted it almost immediately, but the damage was done. The post went viral in our social circle, igniting a firestorm of accusations and defensiveness that only added fuel to the gossip fire. The next morning, nursing a killer hangover and a deep sense of shame, I deactivated all my social media accounts. I needed to step away and focus on healing without the constant noise of other people's opinions. As the initial shock began to wear off, the practical realities of ending a 15-year marriage set in. I knew I needed to protect myself legally, but the thought of sitting down with lawyers and haggling over the division of our life together made me physically ill. It still does, looking back on it, but I did what needed to be done. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Each deposition, each negotiation session felt like reliving the betrayal all over again. I had to sit across a table from the man I'd loved for half my life and listen to him twist our history, painting himself as the victim of an unhappy marriage. There were days when I wanted to give up, to just walk away with whatever Anderson would give me to avoid the stress and pain of fighting. But my attorney, bless her soul, kept me focused on the end goal. In the end, thanks to her skill and tenacity, we reached a settlement that was more than fair. I got to keep the house, a significant portion of our savings, and alimony that would help me maintain my lifestyle while I got back on my feet. But the victory felt hollow. No amount of money could compensate for the loss of the life I thought I had. As word of our divorce spread, I was unprepared for how it would affect my professional life. I had always prided myself on keeping my personal and work lives separate, but suddenly the lines were blurring in uncomfortable ways. Colleagues who I'd considered friends suddenly became awkward around me, as if divorce was contagious. I overheard whispers by the water cooler, speculating about what had gone wrong in my marriage. The pitying looks and awkward attempts at sympathy were almost worse than the outright gossip. As for my family, well, my family was a mixed bag of support and judgment in the wake of the divorce. My sister was my rock, offering a spare room and a shoulder to cry on when I needed it most. She listened without judgment, brought me ice cream and tissues on my darkest days, and fiercely defended me to anyone who dared to suggest I should have seen the signs or tried harder to save my marriage. My parents, on the other hand, were of the old school marriage is forever mindset. While they were angry at Anderson for his infidelity, they also not so subtly hinted that perhaps I should try to forgive him and reconcile. Their inability to fully support my decision added another layer of stress to an already overwhelming situation. I found myself pulling away from them, unable to deal with their disapproval on top of everything else. Our once close relationship became strained, conversation stilted and surface level. It all came to a head at a family dinner about 6 months after the divorce was finalized. My mother had invited Anderson, hoping to orchestrate some kind of reconciliation. When I walked in to find him sitting at the dinner table, looking uncomfortable but hopeful, I nearly turned around and walked out. The dinner was a disaster. My parents fawned over Anderson, reminiscing about happier times and pointedly talking about the importance of forgiveness. I sat in stony silence, pushing food around my plate and fighting back tears of frustration and betrayal. Finally, when my mother started talking about how lovely it would be to have grandchildren, I'd had enough. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I confronted them, venting about everything, the stress I was going through, the audacity they were showing by inviting Anderson, and the fact that he even dared to show up. It was then that I walked out, leaving my family sitting in shocked silence. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also one of the most liberating. For the first time since the divorce, I felt like I was standing up for myself, setting boundaries, and prioritizing my own well-being. It took time, but that dinner became a turning point in my relationship with my parents. They realized they were at risk of losing me if they couldn't accept my choices. Slowly, tentatively, we began to rebuild our relationship on a new foundation of respect for my autonomy. The dissolution of my marriage also sent waves through our social circle, forcing everyone to choose sides in a battle no one had seen coming. The once tight-knit group of couples we'd built our life around broke apart messily. Some friends rallied around me immediately. One couple we'd known since college were at my door that day after the confrontation with casseroles and comfort. They listened without judgment, offered practical help with things like changing the locks and canceling joint accounts, and provided a safe space for me to fall apart. Others were less supportive. A pair of neighbors who lived across the street and had been our regular Saturday night dinner dates for years suddenly became scarce. The invitation stopped, and they would scurry into their house with a quick wave if they saw me outside. I later learned that they were still socializing with Anderson, who had apparently spun a story that painted himself as the victim of a loveless marriage. The hardest to deal with were the friends who tried to stay neutral. They would invite both Anderson and me to events, creating painfully awkward situations. I'll never forget one friend's baby shower, where I arrived to find Jenny already there. The room went silent as everyone waited to see how I would react. I plastered on a fake smile and made small talk, but left as soon as I could, feeling humiliated and exposed. As the months passed, I began to see my friendships in a new light. I realized that some people I'd considered close friends were really just social acquaintances, more interested in maintaining the status quo than in supporting me through a difficult time. It was a painful realization, but also a needed one. As I began to emerge from the initial fog of grief and anger, I started to reconnect with old friends who had drifted away during my marriage. Reaching out to these old connections was scary at first. I felt vulnerable and exposed, certain that everyone must know about my failed marriage and judge me for it. But I was met with warmth and compassion that brought me to tears more than once. One old friend even flew in for a weekend, and we spent hours reminiscing about our college days and catching up on the years in between. She listened to my story with empathy, then shared her own experiences with heartbreak and renewal. By the end of her visit, I felt a glimmer of hope that I hadn't experienced in months. As the rawness of the divorce began to fade, I found myself facing a new challenge, the prospect of dating again. The thought was equally terrifying and exhilarating. On one hand, I longed for companionship and the excitement of a new romance. On the other, the idea of being vulnerable again, of trusting someone with my heart, was petrifying. My first attempt at dating was a disaster. Encouraged by well meaning friends, I signed up for a popular dating app. The experience was overwhelming. The sheer number of options was daunting, and trying to craft a profile that encompassed who I was while also addressing my divorce status felt impossible. I finally worked up the courage to go on a date with a man named Ryan. He seemed nice enough in our online chats, but in person it was painfully awkward. I found myself comparing him to Anderson at every turn, and when he tried to hold my hand at the end of the night, I nearly had a panic attack. After that fiasco, I swore off dating for a while, focusing instead on rebuilding my sense of self. I traveled solo for the first time, taking a 2-week trip to Italy that I'd always dreamed of. I redecorated the house, purging it of remnants of my life with Anderson and creating a space that was entirely my own. I even adopted a cat, finding comfort in the simple, unconditional affection of a pet. It was during this period of self-discovery that I ran into Brian at a local coffee shop. Brian, Jenny's ex-husband, looked as shell-shocked as I felt. We ended up talking for hours, sharing our experiences and commiserating over the shared trauma of betrayal. Brian and I started meeting regularly for coffee, providing each other much-needed support as we navigated our new lives. It was refreshing to talk to someone who truly understood what I was going through, who didn't judge me for the days when I couldn't get out of bed or the nights when I drank too much wine and cried over old photos. As time passed, those coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Neither of us was looking for a relationship, both still raw from our divorces, but we found comfort in each other's company and a spark of attraction that took us both by surprise. Our budding relationship added another layer of complexity to the social dynamics of our community. Some friends were supportive, seeing it as a poetic kind of justice. Others accused us of stooping to Anderson and Jenny's level, as if we were only together to get back at our exes. The gossip mill went into overdrive with wild speculations about how long we'd been involved and whether we'd had our own affair. The first time Brian and I attended a neighborhood party together, you could have heard a pin drop when we walked in. The stares and whispers were almost comical, but as we stood there, hand in hand, I realized I didn't care what anyone else thought. For the first time in a long time, I felt happy and hopeful about the future. It was then that I really let go of the past, I guess. It still happened, and I still acknowledge it, but I can see what's more important now, the future. Here are my thoughts about the story. First off, can we talk about the absolute gut punch of that moment when Sandro walks in on Anderson and Jenny? I mean, talk about your world shattering in an instant. I could practically feel the floor dropping out from under her. It's one of those moments that you always think happens to other people, never to you. And to have it not just her husband, but her best friend too? That's a double betrayal that would knock anyone sideways. What really struck me throughout the story was how Sandra's entire social world imploded along with her marriage. Something you don't always think about when you hear about affairs and divorces, how it ripples out and affects every aspect of your life. The way her friends and neighbors all started taking sides or trying to stay neutral, man, that's gotta be so isolating. Like you're already dealing with this massive personal crisis and suddenly you can't even trust the people you thought had your back. I gotta give major props to Sandra's sister Emma though. Talk about being there when it counts. Sometimes it's those ride or die family members who really show up when your whole world is falling apart. Emma sounds like the kind of sister everyone wishes they had in a crisis. The stuff with Sandra's parents really got to me too. I mean, I get that they're from a different generation with different values, but inviting Anderson to that family dinner, that's a special kind of tone deaf. It's like they were living in some kind of 1950s sitcom where you can just sweep infidelity under the rug and play happy families. Good on Sandra for standing up for herself and setting those boundaries, even if it was hard. You know what part of the story really resonated with me, though? When Sandra talked about rediscovering herself after the divorce. It's like she was reclaiming her identity piece by piece. It's so easy to lose yourself in a long-term relationship, and I love that she took the time to figure out who she was on her own before jumping into anything new. And speaking of new things, that twist with Brian at the end, I didn't see that coming, but it kind of makes sense, right? Who else could understand exactly what she's been through? It's like they formed this bond through shared trauma and it evolved into something more. I'm not gonna lie, there's a part of me like, yeah, take that, Anderson and Jenny. But it also seems like it's more than just a revenge thing. It's two people who's been through hell finding some happiness together. The way Sandra described walking into that neighborhood party with Brian, not caring what anyone thought. Man, that gave me chills. I'm glad for her, really. After everything she went through, all the gossip and judgment and pain, she finally got to a place where she could just be happy without worrying about anyone else's opinion. Well, no, actually, I'm glad for both of them. Brian's side of the story wasn't told, but I'm sure there must have been a big fallout on his end too. Props to the both of them for coming as far as they did after that mess of an affair.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
Toxic mother-in-law tried to name our baby. I finally stood up to her. Thanks to my overbearing mother-in-law, what should have been an exciting time for my husband and me became a months-long battle that nearly tore our family apart. I'm Caroline, 28 years old, and I've been married to my wonderful husband Luca for 3 years. We were thrilled when we found out I was pregnant with our first child. Everything was going smoothly until my mother-in-law, Raina, got involved. Raina had always been a bit intense. She was the type of woman who believed her way was the only right way to do things. But I'd managed to keep the peace for the most part, biting my tongue and letting her little comments and suggestions slide off my back. That all changed when we announced my pregnancy. Suddenly, Raina went into overdrive. She had opinions on everything, what I should eat, how I should exercise, which doctors I should see. It was exhausting, but Luca and I did our best to humor her, figuring her excitement would die down eventually. We were wrong. Around the 5-month mark, Luca and I started seriously discussing baby names. We had a small list of favorites for both boys and girls that we were debating between. It was fun imagining our future child with each name. Then one day, Raina called out of the blue, "Caroline, I've got the perfect name picked out for the baby," she announced without so much as a hello. I froze, caught off guard. Luca and I haven't decided on anything yet." "Well, you can stop looking." Raina's steam rolled on. "If it's a boy, we'll name him Charles, after Luca's grandfather. And if it's a girl, she'll be Reina Jr., of course. I nearly choked. Reina Jr.? I don't think it's tradition to name the first granddaughter after the paternal grandmother, Reina interrupted. Plus, Reina is a beautiful name with a rich history. The baby will love it. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. That's very thoughtful of you, Reina, but Luca and I would like to choose the name ourselves. We have a few ideas we're considering already. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When Reina spoke again, her voice had a dangerous edge to it. What do you mean you're considering other names? I just told you what the baby's name will be. This isn't up for discussion. My temper flared. Who did she think she was? Actually, it is up for discussion, I said firmly, between Luca and me. We appreciate your input, but we'll be making the final decision on our child's name. Now you listen here, Reina hissed. I won't have you disrespecting family traditions. That baby is as much my grandchild as it is your child. I have just as much right to name it as you do. I saw red. That is absolutely not true. This is my baby. Luca and I are the parents, and we alone will decide on the name. End of story. I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking with anger. When Luca got home that evening, I filled him in on the conversation with his mother. To my relief, he was fully on my side. I'm so sorry she did that, he said, pulling me into a hug. I'll talk to her and make it clear that we're choosing the name, no one else. I relaxed a bit, grateful to have Luca's support. I really thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how naive I was. Over the next few months, Reina launched a full-scale campaign to name our baby. It started with daily phone calls, each one a new argument for why we should use her chosen names. Charles was such a respected man in the community, she'd say. Don't you want your son to have that kind of legacy? Or, Reina means queen in Spanish. Don't you want your daughter to feel like a queen? When we didn't cave, she escalated. She began sending us books and articles about the importance of family names, sometimes multiple packages a day. Our coffee table was soon buried under piles of unsolicited reading material. Next, she started showing up at our house unannounced, always with some flimsy excuse. Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop off this family tree I made. See how many Charleses and Reinas there are? It got to the point where I dreaded the sound of the doorbell. Luca started working from home more often to run interference. But Reina wasn't deterred. She moved on to recruiting other family members to her cause. Suddenly, Luca's siblings and cousins were calling and texting us, urging us to make Grandma happy and keep the family tradition alive. It was relentless. Every family gathering turned into an interrogation about the baby's name. Reina would corner me when Luca wasn't around, trying to guilt me into giving in. Don't you want the baby to feel connected to their heritage? She'd wheedle. Or, I just don't understand why you're being so selfish about this. I did my best to stay firm but polite, always redirecting the conversation. Luca repeatedly told his mother to back off, but nothing seemed to get through to her. As my due date approached, the pressure intensified. Reina started accidentally referring to the baby as Charlie or Reina Jr. In conversation. She bought personalized items with those names, claiming, "Oh, I just couldn't resist." One day, a huge package arrived at our door. Inside was a beautiful, clearly expensive baby blanket. Embroidered in the corner in elegant script was Reina Jr. I burst into tears when I saw it, overwhelmed by the blatant disrespect for our wishes. Luca was furious. He called his mother and told her in no uncertain terms that if she sent one more personalized item, we'd donate it all to charity. Raina's response? She started sending things to other family members instead, asking them to hold on to these for the baby. It all came to a head at my baby shower. Raina had insisted on throwing it despite my reservations. I should have known she had an ulterior motive. The party seemed to be going fine at first, but then Raina called for everyone's attention to make a speech. I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate my grandbaby, she began with a saccharine smile. Little Charlie, or Raina Jr., is already so loved. I stiffened in my seat. Luca squeezed my hand, a warning look in his eyes. Raina continued, Now I know Caroline and Luca have been a bit stubborn about the name. She laughed as if it was all a big joke. But I'm sure once they see how perfect these family names are, they'll come around. So let's have a toast to baby Charlie or Raina Jr. The room erupted in cheers and awes. I sat there in shock, my face burning with humiliation and rage. How dare she ambush me like this at my own baby shower? I saw red. Before I knew what I was doing, I was on my feet. Enough! I shouted. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to me. I have had it with you trying to control every aspect of my pregnancy, I said, glaring at Raina. But this is the last straw. You do not get to name my child. You do not get to announce a name we haven't chosen. This is not your baby. Raina's face turned an ugly shade of red. How dare you speak to me that way? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done? I laughed bitterly. You mean like stomping all over our boundaries, harassing us for months, trying to guilt and manipulate us into doing what you want? I'm just trying to honor family traditions, Raina protested. You're the one being difficult and selfish. No, you're the one being selfish, I shot back. This stopped being about tradition a long time ago. This is about control. You can't stand the idea of not getting your way. Raina turned to Luca, clearly expecting him to take her side. Jacob, are you going to let her talk to your mother this way? Luca stood up next to me, putting an arm around my waist. Mom, Caroline's right. We've asked you repeatedly to stop pushing this name issue. You're the one who's out of line here. Raina's jaw dropped. She looked around the room, but was met with uncomfortable silence. No one seemed willing to jump to her defense. Well, she huffed, I can see I'm not wanted here. Clearly, you've all been brainwashed by this hussy. She jabbed a finger at me. Don't you dare call my wife names, Luca said in a low, dangerous voice. I think you should leave now, Mom. Raina let out an outraged screech. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize what a mistake you've made. That baby deserves better than you two as parents. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence in her wake was deafening. I burst into tears, the stress of the past few months finally overwhelming me. Luca pulled me close, murmuring soothing words. Our friends and family rallied around us, offering support and apologies for not stepping in sooner. The rest of the shower was a blur. I was grateful for everyone's kindness, but I couldn't shake the sick feeling in my stomach. I knew this was far from over. Sure enough, the fallout was swift and brutal. Raina went on a smear campaign, painting me as a cruel daughter-in-law who was keeping her from her grandbaby. She cried to anyone who would listen about how heartbroken she was that we were throwing away family traditions. To my horror, a lot of Luca's extended family seemed to buy into her act. We were floored with calls and messages from relatives we barely knew, lecturing us on the importance of family and urging us to be reasonable. It was awful. I felt like I was going crazy. Was I really being unreasonable? Should we just give in to keep the peace? But Luca stood firm. This is our child, he reminded me. We get to make the decisions, no one else. My mom is completely out of line, and we're not going to cave to her tantrum. His unwavering support gave me strength. Together, we held our ground. We stopped answering Reina's calls and blocked the relatives who wouldn't stop harassing us. It was painful but necessary for our sanity. Reina's campaign continued to escalate. She started showing up at Luca's workplace, trying to guilt him into changing his mind. His co-workers were uncomfortable, and his boss had to ask her to leave more than once. She left voicemails that alternated between saccharine sweetness and vicious guilt-tripping. "Darling, I know you'll do the right thing in the end," she'd coo. Then in the next message, "I can't believe you dishonor your family this way. Your grandfather would be so ashamed." The final straw came when she somehow got hold of my parents' contact information. She called them, spinning a tale about how I was being led astray by Luca and needed an intervention. Thankfully, my parents saw right through her act. They called me immediately to warn me about Reina's behavior. They were appalled at her audacity and promised to support whatever decision Luca and I made about the baby's name. As the due date drew closer, we finally settled on names we loved. Olivia for a girl, or Noah for a boy. We kept them to ourselves, not willing to open the floor for more suggestions. The big day arrived about a week early. After 18 hours of labor, our beautiful baby girl was born. The moment I held her in my arms, I knew we'd make the right choice. She was Olivia through and through. We savored those first precious hours as a new family of 3 before sharing the news. Luca sent out a mass text to family and friends. "Welcome to the world, Olivia Rose. 7 pounds, 2 ounces of pure perfection. Mom and baby doing great." The response was overwhelming. Our phones blew up with congratulations and well wishes. But of course, Reina had to make it about her. She showed up at the hospital unannounced, bursting into my room with a gift bag. "Where's my little Reina Jr.?" she cooed, making a beeline for the baby. Luca intercepted her. "Mom, what are you doing here? We're not accepting visitors yet." Reina waved him off. "Don't be silly. I'm not a visitor. I'm Grandma. Now let me see that sweet girl." I clutched Olivia closer, anger bubbling up inside me. "Her name is Olivia, not Reina Jr. We've been over this." Reina's sickeningly sweet smile faltered. "Come now, you're not still playing that game, are you? I'm sure once you had her in your arms, you realized how perfect Reina Jr. is." "No," I said firmly. "Her name is Olivia Rose. That is the name on her birth certificate, and that is what she will be called. End of discussion." Reina's face twisted in rage. "How dare you? I'm her grandmother. I have rights." Luca stepped between us. "No, Mom, you don't. Not when it comes to naming our child. Now I think you should leave before security has to escort you out." "You ungrateful brats," Reina shrieked. "After everything I've done for you, I'll be contacting my lawyer about this. Just you wait." She stormed out, leaving us shaken. I burst into tears, overwhelmed by it all. Luca held me close, promising it would be okay. But Reina was true to her word. A few weeks after we brought Olivia home, we were served with papers. Reina was suing for grandparents' rights, claiming we were alienating her from her grandchild. I was terrified. Could she really take our baby from us? Luca assured me the case had no merit, but I still felt sick with worry. We hired a lawyer and prepared to fight. The next few months were a nightmare of legal meetings and court appearances. Reina dragged our names through the mud, painting us as unstable and unfit parents. She claimed we were denying her access to Olivia.
when in reality we'd offered supervised visits that she turned down because we couldn't call the baby Reina Jr. She accused us of emotional abuse for not honoring family traditions. She even tried to argue that our choice of name was evidence of mental instability. But slowly, the truth began to come out. Our lawyer subpoenaed Reina's phone and emailed records, revealing the extent of her harassment. We had dozens of witnesses testify about her behavior at the baby shower and other events. To our shock, we discovered Reina had been lying to the rest of the family. She told them we refused to let her see the baby at all, when in reality we'd offered those supervised visits. She claimed we changed Olivia's name just to spite her, when we never considered Reina Jr. in the first place. The case fell apart quickly after that. The judge dismissed it, scolding Reina for wasting the court's time with frivolous claims. She even suggested Reina seek counseling to address her unhealthy fixation on naming rights. It was a huge relief, but the damage to our family relationships was done. Many relatives were horrified when they realized how Reina had manipulated them. They reached out to apologize, but it was hard to trust them again. The fallout for Reina was severe. Her reputation in the family was in tatters. Many relatives, disgusted by her behavior, cut ties with her completely. Those who didn't cut contact entirely became much more wary of her, always questioning whether she was telling the truth. Reina's church group, which she'd heavily involved in her smear campaign against us, was appalled to learn the truth. She was asked to step down from her leadership positions, and many members distanced themselves from her. Even some of her closest friends were shocked by the extent of her deceit and manipulation. A few stood by her, but most pulled away, unable to trust her anymore. Reina didn't take this well. She alternated between playing the victim, "Everyone's abandoned me after all I've done for this family," and lashing out angrily at anyone who criticized her behavior. She tried to rally support by claiming we'd turned everyone against her, but few were buying it anymore. Her credibility was shot. We went low contact with Reina, allowing only short supervised visits. She complained bitterly about it, but we stood our ground. Our daughter's well-being came first. Olivia is 6 months old now, a happy, healthy baby girl. She's the light in our lives, and we couldn't imagine her with any other name. Sometimes I look at her and still can't believe everything we went through, but I'm proud that we stood up for ourselves and our right to make decisions for our child. I know we'll face more challenges as parents, but Luca and I are stronger for having weathered this storm together, and we'll always put our little family first no matter what. As for Reina, she's still not happy about the name, but she seems to have fully accepted that she can't change it. These days, she limits herself to the occasional pointed comment about how Reina is such a lovely middle name. I just smile and change the subject. She can say what she wants. Our daughter will always be Olivia to us. The whole ordeal taught me a lot about setting boundaries and standing up for myself. It wasn't easy, but it was so worth it in the end. I'm a stronger person and a better mother for having gone through it. To any other parents out there dealing with overbearing in-laws or family members, stay strong. Remember that you and your partner are the parents. Your choices for your child are what matter most. Don't be afraid to set firm boundaries and stick to them. It might ruffle some feathers, but your peace of mind and your child's well-being are worth it. At the end of the day, you're the ones who have to live with the decision you make for your family. Trust your instincts, stand your ground, and never let anyone bully you into choices you're not comfortable with. Your child will thank you for it someday. As I watch Olivia babbling happily in her playpen, I know we made the right call. She may not understand it now, but someday I'll tell her this story. I'll tell her how we fought for her right to have the name we chose, how we didn't let anyone, not even family, dictate our choices as parents. I hope it teaches her to stand up for herself too, to know her worth and not let others walk all over her, because that's the kind of strong, confident woman I want my daughter to grow up to be. For now, though, I'm just soaking in every moment with my sweet Olivia. The name drama is behind us, and we have a whole lifetime of precious memories ahead. I can't wait to see what the future holds for our little family. Raina may have tried to take control, but in the end, love and determination won out. Our daughter has the name we chose for her, surrounded by parents who will always put her first. And really, that's all that matters. Here are my thoughts about the story. Let's talk about this roller coaster of a story for a sec. Caroline and Luca, our poor unsuspecting parents-to-be, probably thought their biggest worry was going to be picking between seafoam green or sunshine yellow for the nursery. Boy, were they in for a surprise. Enter Hurricane Raina, sweeping in with all the subtlety of a rhinoceros in a china shop. Now, I gotta say at first, I was kind of feeling for Raina. I mean, we've all had the moment of excitement when we blurt out something stupid, right? But continuing to push it for months, sending personalized baby gear? Girl, take a hint. But the baby shower scene? That's where I went from, oh, Raina, to, oh, hell no, Raina. I mean, who hijacks a baby shower to announce a name that isn't even decided? That's like showing up at someone's wedding and announcing your own engagement. Not cool, Raina. Not cool at all. And can we talk about the audacity of suing for grandparents' rights over a name? I'm no lawyer, but I'm pretty sure. But I want to call the baby Raina Jr. isn't gonna hold up in court. Spoiler alert, it didn't. What really gets me, though, is how Raina managed to rope in the whole family with her drama. It's like she was running some sort of twisted PR campaign. Vote Raina Jr. for the best baby name this year. Free guilt trips with every vote. I bet Thanksgiving dinners are going to be real awkward for a while. But you know what? Kudos to Caroline and Luca for standing their ground. It would have been so easy to just give in for the sake of peace, but they said, nope, not today, Satan. I mean, Raina. And stuck to their guns. That's some serious parenting skills right there before the kid is even born. And little Olivia, girl, you hit the parent jackpot. You've got a mom and dad who will go to the mat for you, even against their own family. That's love, folks. Real messy. I'll fight grandma in the court, love. Now, I know some of you all might be thinking, Dave, aren't you being a little hard on Raina? She's just an excited grandma. And look, I get it. Becoming a grandparent is exciting. But there's excited and then there's I'm going to steamroll over your choices and throw a tantrum when I don't get my way excited. One's cute. The other's a one-way ticket to estrangement town. But here's the thing that really sticks with me about this whole saga. It's not just about a baby name. It's about respect. It's about understanding that your kids are grown-ups now, making their own families and their own choices. And sometimes those choices aren't gonna be what you'd pick. But that's okay, that's life. Your job as a parent or grandparent is to support, not control. So, to all the future grandparents out there, take notes on what not to do. And to all the future parents, remember, it's okay to set boundaries. Your baby, your rules, even if it means going toe-to-toe with grandma lawsuit over there. In the end, this story is a wild ride, but it's also a reminder that family is complicated. It's messy and frustrating, and sometimes it drives you up the wall. But it's also beautiful and worth fighting for. Just maybe try to keep the fighting out of the courtroom, yeah? Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.